Kermit Zone with our very special guest star, you, the listener. Yay! It's time to fetch your headphones. It's time to check the mics. It's time to chat a culture on the Kermit Zone tonight. It's time now for a shake-up. It's time to go sit tight. It's time to start recording on the Kermit Zone tonight. Why do we always come here? I guess we'll never know. It's like a kind of torture to have to tape the show. So now let's get things started.
Why don't you get things started?
It's time to get things started on the most sensational, conversational, observational, confrontational. This is what we call the Kermit Zone. Hello, everybody. That was very loud. And not the intro that I wanted to do, because I wanted to do the hey-ho, it's Kermit the Grog here, with another Kermit's Pop Culture Talk Zone. Wow, we're bad at recording. I'm here today, at a time undisclosed, with my good friends, Forward Progress.
Hi everyone. I love your intro. It's like exactly what most people would just re-record, but not us.
No, and would you believe I actually was trying to rehearse this earlier to get it right, and it has gone horribly off the tracks because I tried to plan anything. And also on this train wreck of a fun time, the Nova Rose.
What's up, party people?
Woo! We're not even drinking tonight. That's the best part.
We are three sober individuals.
Stone cold sober.
We raw dog in reality right here.
I'm drinking water. It's great. So, amidst this crazy thing, because this one's going to be, as much as Pop Culture Talk Zone is the sort of, like, less studied version of a Keeping Friendship Magic episode, this one is a sort of extra, sort of free association one, because it's very much it's formed as posing a question to us, but it's also to you to spend the time to do this, because this question kind of entered my brain recently at my anime club that I go to online with some old coworkers, where the topic of, like, being sort of drawn into certain genres or settings or something, or maybe that you were kind of against other settings, and why that was, but, like, really kind of trying to dig down into your, like, subconscious of, like, why you're kind of drawn to those more than others. Because I feel like we all have certain things in media and storytelling that we're drawn to, and at least for me, I feel like I never really took the time to understand why I liked those things. I just sort of did, and I rolled with it. So I guess that is my question. That's what we're going to kind of delve into ourselves, is what's a genre or a setting that you like, and why do you think that is? What do you think is the specific strengths of that particular genre or setting that appeals to you? And I guess to set up specifically, the example is, like, we were talking about, like, I'm generally drawn to things of, like, post-apocalyptia, like a Fallout or, like, a Mad Max or something like that. Like, there's something about that just sort of draws my attention more than other things. And it was just like, well, why is that? So I guess with that sort of starting idea, forward. Let's start with you. What is a genre you like, and we'll start trying to figure out and dig in to maybe why you enjoy that for conscious or subconscious reasons.
What's interesting, and I feel like this in and of itself is going to set up more of the talking points, is when I reflect on this topic, I find that over time it has changed and it has shifted. Where there's periods where I was really into science fiction more, where other periods I would be more into a lot of, like, classical fantasy work. And, like, nowadays, like, there's a little bit of a hodgepodge. Obviously, anybody who knows me knows I've been doing so much more animation than anything else lately. And granted, animation is kind of one of those things that can work into several different genres.
As I've said in past panels and will say into the future, animation is not a genre. Exactly. Animation is a medium.
Exactly. But I feel like there's something in that sense of, like, I feel like a lot of the things that I've gotten into have been very out of this world, but also of this world, which I don't know if that makes sense, but like
No, I think I have a similar thing I'm going to dig into then, so yeah.
So, from what I've picked up, you typically like things that are essentially quote-unquote grounded in reality, but more fantasy genre.
Fantastical, I think, is the word you want, because not necessarily fantasy.
Yes, and granted, I am fully prepared for us to pick apart anything to get me to kind of look at myself differently, because part of this is me trying to figure it out.
Yeah, that is part of this, of like that. Like, I spent with what kind of started this, gave me this idea, was just like, I've had the same things that draw my eye to get me interested in something, but since I was, a kid, but I never took the time to understand why. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of what this. So let's give me a.
See, I guess I'll actually start in the reverse of this, where like I grew up very, how should I say, like secluded. So like pretty much my only like out and escape were stories. So I've found that I essentially I like stories. Like, I know
that's a lame answer, Rose. All stories are stories.
In other words, like, I used to be like, oh, I only liked like action, or like I only liked very specific genres. But as I've kind of grown to know and understand myself, I kind of said, well, screw it. Like, I'm going to try literally anything. Like, I know I recently picked up an anime called Domestic Girlfriend, which from what I was essentially told, that anime was a dumpster fire, but like for specific reasons. And then it was like, I watched it and it was an absolute dumpster fire, but it was an entertaining dumpster fire that it's like, back when I was a teenager, I would have never touched out a 10-foot pole. Like, romance was something that I just do not get behind. I didn't understand it. But now it's like...
Does that draw you in now? Like, if something is a romance, does that, like, go, oh, I'm going to check that out? Like, does it sort of, like, that's that thing, is a flag of that you can see something in the distance and go, yeah, that's one of the flags that I like. I'll go check that out.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Like, I know lately, like, I recently watched one called Citrus. Citrus was actually... interesting.
Yeah, I remember hearing about that when that came out, and it's got some questionable material.
It does. So it's one of those things where it's like, as I'm growing and figuring myself out as a person, like my tastes are ever evolving, and I've found that there isn't really a genre that I don't like.
But what? I guess we're finding that you're kind of on this romance kick. Like, what about that genre now kind of draws you in?
I think a big part of it is, like, I guess romantically, I haven't had many romantic flings in my life. Like, heck, my first kiss was when I was, like, 21. So it's like, I haven't really had many opportunities. I mean, granted, I'm engaged now, but it's like, I guess it's interesting seeing how other relationships can form.
You're able to explore a space that you didn't explore for a long time in different colors and shades than the one you're in now.
Exactly.
Forward, you seem like you were going to say something. We're getting into interesting territory because, yes.
I think one thing, and it's interesting because it's hard to kind of pinpoint genre specific, I think, in my head, but there's pieces. There's one thing I'm thinking of that's kind of a thread here of this fantastical world, almost like this like an escape from our world into a more fantastical world where other things are possible.
Give me an example of what you're talking about.
Like Equestria, or like the world of Amphibia, or
literally a different world, not just like this is kind of Earth, whatever, but literally an escape.
But then you have things like Steven Universe, which is essentially based in Earth, but it's a different version. And I think the big piece to that is you have characters like a lot of these series are driven by characters who have more of a sense of kind of like an idealistic sense of the world and of themselves and of their actions that we don't always get here. So it's kind of that like theme, I would say, of, and it's interesting because I literally last weekend I got to guest on this TF panel talking about transformation, and one of the topics that I know got brought up was a sense of TF and transformation as like escapism. And there's that part of me, and like a lot of this is me just kind of like free-forming this answer as it goes.
That's literally what this is about, is just the you light the fire and then whatever, words pour out of your mouth, whatever smoke pours out, we're exploring.
But
armchair
therapist. I think that might be a thing, because let's face it, I mean, it's 2020, the world's on fire, and like there's a lot, I've had a lot of my life of living kind of like afraid of the world, being closeted as a teenager, and then kind of not being, fear of stigma for like a million things, being a fear of stigma for being a brony, fear of stigma for having HIV, all this stuff. So it's like when you can see things that kind of can transport you into a place where it doesn't have a place or a set of people or ideology that is like not gonna look down on you in the same way that you fear the modern world will.
So question.
I feel like that could be kind of looked at as a connective thread, and I'd have to honestly explore it more myself. And I'm going to get your question here in a second. I'm sorry. But it's something that's coming to mind. You were saying, my love.
I was going to go say, is that why you connect with Kirito so much?
Maybe.
Because it's like that's kind of his,
Can you explain that for me and the audience that doesn't know who that is or what you're talking about?
So
Paint this picture.
So Kirito is the main character of Sword Art Online, where essentially like he goes into this online world because like he's kind of the same thing where like he's a loner, like, and that's kind of like the only place that he fits in, and it's like, I guess it's kind of like that escapism aspect of it, to the point where like he doesn't, quote unquote, like he doesn't really belong in the real world.
Maybe, because it's that thing of like, and granted, I think this is a common, I'd almost say that this could end up being a fallacy of that, like, just because you can be in a different place, you kind of go, oh, here's my chance to have a fresh start. But a lot of people, and everything can be different, but a lot of times people end up just repeating the same mistakes and everything.
Yeah.
Not saying that it will happen, but it's in the real world, it could be as simple as like, I live in Pennsylvania, I'm going to move to Ontario and start fresh around new people in a new country and stuff. And it's like, maybe that'll be the best thing, maybe not. It's all dependent on yourself.
That's interesting.
I'm digging deep here.
That's what this is about. And I feel, going off of yours, of my own thing of like, since I was a kid, like I have always been drawn to animation, and I never fully sort of introspected on like why that was. And I think it's just like, life is what life is and what you see, but in animation, the world can be so much more than what you see. It is more kind of to your point forward, like it is escapism. What you are looking at is not what you see in life. And I think as a kid, I was like bored, and that sort of sense of, I keep going back to fantastical, but I want a different word for it, but just like having the world be more interesting than it appeared. And I feel like that actually is, if we're gonna dig, this whole episode was about kind of digging deep into our own brains, which is why this is a more off the rails pop culture talk zone. It's just like a talk show therapy zone. Shoot, I lost my train of thought.
Can I pick up?
Go for it.
So like, it is kind of interesting because I'll use two franchises here where you have the series The Boys, which live action thing about superheroes.
Yeah.
But like for me, that was a really hard watch just because like they tackle some pretty tough things, from like sexual abuse to lots of rape, and
Content warning.
yeah,
I mean, all this is
sexism. They cover a lot of that. They cover racism.
racism. I know there's a Nazi at some point.
There's a Nazi at some point, and then you have Big Mouth, which is an animated series which tackles pretty much all of these same things, but it does it in such a strange, fantastical way that I feel like is a lot easier to swallow than opposed to seeing it in real life, and it's like people can be like, that I've either seen that happen or, but then like when you see like these like weird monsters and stuff tackling it, it's like,
because it's
strange.
done through like metaphor and symbolism and stuff like that, and I feel like that it lets your sort of, the way I describe it, like your high level brain take on the ideas and get it out without your like low level freaking snake brain going, I see this, and it having its instantaneous responses. It kind of lets you sneak it in. It's one of the reasons like Aesop's Fables works, is that these aren't people, they're animal people, and that kind of helps you. It occupies this weird space between reality and not, where you can take on the lessons, but it also kind of, it's why Zootopia works to an extent. And I feel like that's the same thing that goes with animation, is of just, this is of the world, but it is not. I feel like the more I kind of introspect on certain understandings and beliefs that I have in life, is that I try to approach the world with logic, but in moments where it doesn't seem dangerous, I feel like I will kind of, at least at the times it's happening, kind of shift my beliefs in a way that makes the world more interesting. I'm never going to believe in ghosts to the extent that it could cause harm or trauma, but if I'm in a moment where it's more interesting to believe in ghosts, I will believe in ghosts. I don't know how to say that more clearly exactly, because it seems kind of complicated to say that, but like...
Would that be like suspension of disbelief?
I guess, but like, I like maybe, because it's like, I would never go like, oh, this is haunted. I usually go, there's something else going on here. But like, I've taken part in 2 different seances and felt like things were going on during them. And I don't think I was like faking something to just go, I wasn't making a conscious decision to go, oh, this is more interesting. Well, I'll go along with this. It's just, I opened myself up to it, and things happened that I could probably, if I wanted to, explain away, but I don't. And I feel like it's stuff like that. It's like the little bits and pieces of various belief systems and religions and ideas of luck.
Well,
that it's like, I would never go like, I need to get my fortune told, or I'm gonna like blah blah blah. But it's like, I want to get my getting your fortune told seems like a cool thing to do, and to kind of play into it. And yeah, I think suspension of disbelief is actually a really good way to put that.
Well, it's kind of funny, because I know, kind of going on like a little non sequitur here, it's like a week or 2 ago, I was talking to my mom, and all of a sudden, like, in the sky, like, I just see this weird, like, orange, like, orb that was, like, flying around in really strange patterns, and it's like, like, you see those videos on YouTube all the time being like, oh, it's a UFO or whatever, but then in, like, my, more my scientific brain, it's like, whereas I would love to be like, oh, that's totally a UFO, it's like, it's probably, like, ball lightning or St. Elmo's fires or something like that, but it's like, you're like, I want to believe it's a UFO, and I think that would be like a funner story, but it's like, no, it's just a scientific phenomenon.
Are you guys trying to be the new Mulder and Scully?
Maybe. It's the I want to believe in all this sort of semi-reality stuff as long as it isn't harmful. Because I feel like a lot of that, of when you deny reality a lot, that can cause, we've seen people and we've read stories and whatnot where that can generate its own problems. But I feel like it's a want for the world to be a little bit more vibrant and interesting than it seems to be, especially when you're approaching everything with logic brain, which I definitely had as a kid. So having something that just wasn't the world, that was fantastical, that you could just accept and suspend your interesting. Okay, yeah.
You know what's interesting that came to my mind is this kind of concept of like, it's that old adage about the grass is greener on the other side, is that we have that ability to kind of like portray that, of like wanting to be part of this more fanciful, like, existence, or wanting more of that. But then like, Rose and I have done a few panels now on the world of Pokemon and why you don't want to be a part of it.
Yeah.
And it's that kind of idea of like it's so easy when you're reading and you're seeing all these fantastical stories and all this stuff to be like, I want to be a part of that world. But at the same token, a lot of times, if we were in that world, we would
super dangerous. It'd be awful.
Yeah, it would be, either that or we would just get accustomed to that and our state of, kind of like ennui would just kind of come back.
Well,
yeah.
Like, I know, because, I mean, going back to what I was talking about with the boys, it's like, like, you look at, like, The Incredibles or whatever, where it's just like, oh, superheroes, My Hero Academia for another one. It's like, yay, like, superheroes are freaking awesome. And then it's like, you have the boys, and it's like, have you ever wondered what it'd be like if the Flash ran through someone?
I mean, admittedly, both The Incredibles and My Hero, both, not as intensely as the boys, obviously, do take time to go, like, maybe superheroes, but maybe not superheroes.
Mm-hmm.
Incredibles definitely does tackle that. And
if everybody's super, nobody is super.
It tackles it, but very not as viscerally.
No, obviously, but like I don't know. I think some of that idea is
Pixar
there.
movies usually start with a death, but not like
that one time, and no one will let you live it down. I committed one murder at the start of a Pixar movie, and they never stopped talking about it.
Wait, what?
I'm doing a joke that's about Up, but that I did a murder at the start of a movie. We're freaking freewheeling today.
We're wheeling and dealing.
It's like it's.
I'm opening my brain up real good.
I'm pretty certain that there is a Cards Against Humanity white card that says surviving the first 5 minutes of a Pixar film.
I can believe that. And to this whole idea of the like fanciful escape is. And forward, I think you were kind of getting to this earlier, and again, this is delving into my own brain, but it's, and I'm going to specifically reference, like, RPGs, is that there are so many, like, fantasy RPGs, and I just, like, that is an active, like, Andrew's not interested. Like, fantasy medieval especially is just, like, I don't have a desire for that, and I'm going to get into that later, because I want to delve into that, but...
So no Skyrim?
Well, actually, I'm going to get to that. But the thing that always gets me, like, that will most go, like, oh, I want to check that out, is it's like when you give me something that is more akin to our world, or within the last however many decades, but more. It's one of the reasons that, like, Earthbound is one of my favorite RPGs, because it's, like, it's based in the world that is familiar, but there's a lot of strange things. People have psychic powers, there's a living pile of barf, like... There's all this crazy stuff going on. And I think that's what draws me. Not that it's just fantastical, but it has a basis in a reality, and then it goes weird from there. And I think that's what I want. I don't want to escape. I want just my life to be more. I want my reality to be more. I want to be a cartoon character.
It's interesting that you bring that up, because it reminds me of the disparity between you and I with a series like Korra. Where
yes, exactly.
What you're describing, it makes sense to me why you got into Legend of Korra. Where for me, I really enjoyed Avatar, but with Korra, it was almost I would think it's hard to exactly pinpoint, but I think overall it was too real.
It was the setting, yeah.
It was the setting was too realistic for me, especially compared to Avatar, where it had like elements of a world like ours, but it was still fantastical and different enough that I could like disappear into it.
Well, I mean, kind of expanding upon that, for me, it was like in The Last Airbender, like you had all of these interesting technologies that were like, what if technology advanced with bending being a thing? But then Legend of Korra was more of like, here's, these, like, Avatar characters, but in 1920s for no reason.
Well, no, but I think that's that's, I guess, small tangent on that, because I have strong feelings about it. Like, the thing that makes Korra interesting is, what does spirituality mean when the world is modernizing and industrializing? Do you need a spiritual figurehead when you have a car and a gun? We're going places with this episode. Well, wow. Like, I feel like that's what works. Is like part of, I feel like, I don't remember if it's in the second book. I haven't rewatched 3 and 4 yet. But I feel like part of it is like, should we have somebody like this in this modern thing where so many people are on more even playing ground now because of the technology we have? And I feel like that's one of the reasons. Again, that's why like Ford was saying that was a really good example you brought up between us, is that Korra appealed to me because even more so than Avatar, it was, what if it was, again, that's why I say a couple decades ago, like once you start getting to things like that's kind of more modern life in America, quote unquote, even reaching back into like the 20s where you're getting that kind of level of technology, but more, and that's what always interests me. It's like, what if we had that, but we had crazy powers, you know?
Mm-hmm. And it's like, and it's not that I diss that at all. Like, definitely there's a time and a place for wonderful things set around 1920s type of style. I mean, one of my favorite movies and my absolute favorite musical ever is Chicago. Total based, you know, set in the 1920s.
It's not that
and
you
everything.
don't like those things, and I
think it was what I wasn't looking for. Like, it's like I came here for one thing and I got something different. And again, nothing wrong with that. It just wasn't jumping out to me in the same way it jumps out to others. And I still respect that it is, you know, I'm sure in a very good, interesting property that gave a lot of people a lot of things. And that's one of those interesting things that I've had to come to terms with growing older. Is I think I've had a history of like being very much, I believe South Park coined the term of having the condition of being a cynical asshole, where if I looked at something and it was just crap, and I'd be like, this is crap, how do you not see that this is just crap? And then, but over time, I had to kind of be like, you know what, just because it's not my thing doesn't mean it's absolute crap. It doesn't mean other
it lacks
people...
value.
Yes, that's a very good way of putting it. Because... I've had interesting conversations even with you two about various properties where I start getting heated and then I have to catch myself.
I've done that where we've started getting either one of us gets heated and then I just go, we need to stop. This is just going to go in circles. We're too polite. We're too angry, but we're also too polite, and nothing will happen.
Yeah, exactly. Like we want to be like angry, but we also don't want to disrespect each other.
Yeah.
It's an interesting cycle.
When you are pissed off at your friends but too polite, and you're just in this weird, you know, circling freaking bullfight where nothing happens and you're just constant freaking fighting game in 3D space. You're just constantly turning and shifting around in a circle.
Well, and then it gets even more interesting for Rose and I. Because, I mean, well, we're together and we have been for years. And I know for us, we get this very interesting balance. And I knew you wanted to talk about this. So if you want this as your segue, have at it, honey.
Go for it. If you're ready for it.
Rose has been trying for the last couple of years to figure out what makes me tick why I like what I like.
That was part of the thing of this, of like those things that you see and you go, that's something I want to check out.
Well, like where it's like where Rose wants to know what I like so she can show me things so I can be part of the world of the things she's into. Am I phrasing that right?
Well, it's interesting because I know typically you're not very big on things that are
misanthropic.
Misanthropic, yes.
What does that mean?
Where like humans are horrible, essentially.
Yep, no, I can agree with that. I also don't like that.
And it's one of those things where like I remember I shared with you Death Note, and I thought you were going to hate it because it's like one of the most misanthropic freaking shows that I know. And you freaking loved it. And
it's
it was
dark.
Like,
it's not mean. It's not a mean show.
It does raise interesting questions.
Exactly.
Well,
big brain. Well,
here's the thing. Being mean and being misanthropic
Misanthropic
are two different things.
You know what's funny is you're the one who kept shoving that word down my throat at first.
I haven't used it in a really long time.
Would you describe,
and it wasn't down my throat
because we literally were just talking about this, and I think you said you wanted to talk about it in that context for this episode, would you describe Hell of a Boss and Has Been Hotel as misanthropic?
No.
Okay, because that's what I'm trying to figure out where your line is, because that was definitely, from what your definition was, from what I understood it.
Essentially, when I go misanthropic,
give me an example.
It's more of like where I'll use Death Note as an example. Is essentially the idea of it is if a human is given a choice between doing the right thing, doing the bad thing, they'll choose the bad thing for some kind of gain, whether it's for greed or what have you.
It's like a lot of properties end with some kind of sense of like the good guy wins in the end or there's hope. This would be more of a thing of like...
Sometimes it ends in a gray morass.
Yeah, exactly. Go ahead, honey.
So, but then there's Helluva where it's like, they're all in hell. So it's like, they've all did something absolutely horrible in their living life to put them in hell. So the fact that they're all kind of dicks to each other is like, duh. But it's like,
No,
but the thing
I
is,
disagree with that.
In other words, it takes the snapshot of humanity that is terrible, but it's not necessarily showing, oh, this is all of humanity, whereas something that's missing.
I think you are being way too high-minded and altruistic about why people are mean in the Hell of a Boss series.
To be fair, we only have 2 episodes in a pilot so far. And episode 2 actually got into a lot of more
things that I wanted
characterization. Yeah. So it's a little early to tell.
I love how like noble your reasoning is. Of like they're in hell, of course they're. I'm like a bunch of Tumblr edgelords made this that love shouting about venereal diseases and fucking. Of course, this was what they were going to make.
But I don't know. Like, I mean, if you're doing a property in hell,
I don't. No,
okay,
I think you are being too noble about it. I think you are thinking they are too noble about it. They want to be in hell so they could draw cool demon designs. Let's be real.
If you were writing a story in hell, how would you show them?
What?
Like how? Like if you
not everybody that did things that were bad to go into hell were assholes. That were jerks.
I feel like
you don't have to be a terrible person to like. You don't have to be like a interacting with somebody terrible person to go to hell. Air quotes, whatever that means in this situation.
Fair.
We are going way off the rails. Which I guess was part of this, but also I want to get back to my rails.
I can always dissect like Has-Been Hotel or even the second.
That's it. You can if you want to have your own podcast, Rose. We can. You just want to have a Has-Been podcast. We can do that. I will talk about it. You know, I will talk about those. But we're talking about other things this time. So, I'm going to take the mic back. I'm going to be really rude. I'm the host. The mic is, we're sharing it. I can't physically take it from Rose, but I have essentially snatched it right out of her grip in a very rude play for power, which her face is seeing that my comedy about it is not helping the situation at all. So I'm just going to get to my point. And I said it a little before. I want to talk about that. Rose just not here. Not at this particular episode. One of the things I was exploring for the initial conversation that spawned this was that I'm drawn to post-apocalyptia, and I don't know why. And that was something I was trying to like look inside and internalize, and it was the old thing I held up for probably even over a decade ago. It was just like I'm given that choice between Skyrim and Fallout, or Elder Scrolls and Fallout, I will choose Fallout every time, because I always prefer that post-apocalyptic to any, flavor of fantasy there is. And I was like, why is that? And I was trying to think about it in between the last time I thought about it in this episode. And I think it's somewhat of the idea of here is the world, but it is like there's something different about it. But also, it's kind of an escapism with the world. It's like all of the structures and the general things of power are gone. We're in this weird new world. There's a lot of things that are familiar to you as in a semi-modern time, but you can just sort of, especially because I think a lot of it formed by Fallout and to an extent Mad Max, there's just a lot of wandering in space and getting stuff, and I feel like that almost plays into kind of my, like, sometimes hoarder mentality of, like, something?
I do have something.
Okay. Go for it.
Could it be, because I know you're very much a person of order. From what I've known you. And the thing with post-apocalyptia is that it's usually very chaotic. So could it basically be that it's essentially the opposite of your personality, so therefore you were drawn to it?
That's a really good way to put it. It's my escapism because it's where the order that I'm normally constrained by, willingly, is gone. Like, I had weird fantasies is too strong of a word, because I feel like that would imply that I had more specific ideas involved. And obviously, if I was in the post-apocalypse of any stretch, I'd be dead. I would probably die pretty quickly. I don't know how to actually survive, but that's why it exists in that sort of fantasy realm of just like, oh, it's me and my friends wandering the wastelands, just sort of getting by, collecting food, and having adventures. And there's just something weirdly compelling and interesting to me about that. But it's weird that, like, I don't have the, like, oh, what if all of my friends got transported to, like, medieval times and we did that. And there's just something about that isn't interesting. And I guess that was actually part of what I said I didn't like fantasy and or medieval stuff. The original thing is, like, all of that is beholden of, like, there's these kings and these queens and there's these royal parties and all that. And it's just, like, I don't care about any of that. And I feel like when you have the apocalypse and things are broken down and it's mostly just, there's a gang of dudes over there and there's, like, a weird overlord or something. Like, everything's so much more small in scope. Mm-hmm. And I think that's why I like it. Like, the levels of order are a lot smaller.
Just chaos versus order, essentially.
But it's forming the order in it, but you're outside of the order of what the world was. And it's that idea of, like, I don't have to go to work. I just wander around with my buddies, finding stuff and getting by.
Because the thing with, like, say, Skyrim is, like, you have all these towns that all have all of these governments, and, like, you don't really have very much power in the way of, like, either moving up in the system or whatever. But then, like, with, like, the Fallout series, it's so chaotic, and, like, you have, you know, especially Fallout 4, like, you're able to essentially become the mayor of your town, and then you have that one guy that's constantly yelling at you, hey, there's bandits.
Preston Vance. That might have been one of the characters. I don't remember.
Preston, yeah, it was freaking Preston.
It's Preston.
But it's like so essentially, like, you can take a stake in things, whereas the other one, you're essentially under, you know.
I'm a small piece in a giant thing.
In other words, you're basically living your life just in medieval times, which is
lame.
I don't know. Like, it's not lame.
It's not lame. I guess it's like, I don't know. I think part of this is my hipstar brain from years of just not being interested in like, Lord of the Rings doesn't do anything for me. Like, it's just, like, I could care less. Like, D&D, I usually have to do something funky to make myself interested in it, which is why, like, my first big D&D character was, like, what was essentially, like, a SWAT riot officer who tried to bust up a cult ring and got infected with a demonic dagger. And it started as a warlock and then became a barbarian because I sucked as a warlock. But it was, like, I needed some extra sort of non-medievally fantasy twist to get my brain more invested in it.
It depends on the series. Like, it's one of those weird things that, it's not that I dislike Lord of the Rings. I almost feel like it's almost too much, is my only big thing with it. Like, I thought I was going to love Lord of the Rings more than what I do.
Well, it's funny because I was literally having this conversation with you earlier, Forward, about how, like, I tried reading the first Lord of the Rings book, and I was bored to tears. But then, like,
the first movie and was bored to tears many years ago.
But then I read The Hobbit, and I freaking loved that story.
I love The Hobbit too.
The Hobbit, yeah.
I don't know why. Let's explore that, because we all seem to be on the same page of not being interested in Lord of the Rings, but we all loved reading The Hobbit. We're not talking about The Hobbit movie. F that movie.
I think a big thing with it is
thank you.
It's a single book.
Yes.
Two, it's focused on essentially one primary person, whereas the Lord of the Rings series is like it's constantly skipping to everyone in the world, and it's like, and then there's a lot of politics in Lord of the Rings.
Yes.
So it's like, in other words, The Hobbit is very simple.
That's why I think that's another reason. I guess that's that word activated. I want to move it over to like a post-apocalyptic, like, there's not really any politics. Mm-hmm. And I feel like that has an extra tinge of where we've been in 2020, and I don't want it to have that in this, my descriptor of it here, though that is nice. Of just, again, it's like, I'm going to freaking quote freaking Bioshock in a line that is used in a lot more negative sense in that one of the, or can be taken in more destructive directions, which is the whole lesson of Bioshock of the no gods, no kings, only man. And I feel like that's part of why I like Post-Apocalyptia, is just like everything has broken down and you're just working within the pieces and the scope of everything gets a lot smaller.
I mean, I can understand in general, even outside of just the fact that it's 2020 and it's an election year and all that stuff, of wanting to be removed from politics. Because let's face it, like, you say the word politics and most people internally or externally just groan. You know, it's like, ugh, politics.
I'm not beholden to some noble. I think that's why one of the reasons I don't like medieval stuff.
It's an interesting thing. Like, it's I think that's part of it is, and it's something we kind of discussed earlier, that sense of, like, when you can kind of look at it from the outside and keep it in the fantasy realm, that's one thing. But when you get down to the dirty details of what actually, like, especially anything that's like you're going back to like medieval times and the times of lord and ladies, and it's like you prop it up. But even things like the 1920s is a great example of, like, we think about the Roaring Twenties and flappers and jazz and all this stuff, but the 20s was a time of great economic disparity that led right into the Great Depression.
Yep. And
there was
Spanish flu.
Yeah, and just everything. Well, Spanish flu was
1910s.
1919, I believe.
Yeah, close.
Anyway,
close enough.
But besides that, it's like this whole economic disparity, and there was a lot of just very low income individuals, a lot of people who were down on their luck. But when you think back on the 20s, you don't like to think about that normally, and that's not the narrative that's gotten written over the years. So it's kind of one of those, like, those things of, how do I put, like, you kind of want to be able to just enjoy the adventure side of it and the positive without having to get down into the nitty gritty a lot of times.
Maybe? I don't know. The weird more wrinkle to that, the space in between, is as soon as things that are mechanical start getting involved in a medieval setting, my interest level goes up. If I see clockwork, if I see firearms, I don't know why, or like simple machines, my interest starts going up, and I like that's that extra thing where I don't understand that part.
I think there's a sense for me of a more simplistic time too, of like a time where, a time before guns, for example. Yeah. I mean, I'm not dissing on people who have guns or anything. It's just I'm not a fan of guns. I don't like them.
Neither am I in life. That's the odd thing to it. Like in fiction, I mean, one of the other things, like, genres or kind of tropey things that I was talking about before that I really like is, like, a Western. Like, I love a good Western in the vein of, like, the Man with No Name series of, Sergio Leone and all that. And, like, The Mandalorian, for it being a Star Wars sci-fi, that is a Western.
No, it is a Western.
It's a Western, and it's like pumping into my veins. There's just something about, and I think it fits in that apocalypse thing to an extent of just there is this lone man who has a lot of like an ability, and I guess a gun is also involved, just like wandering around, like doing things. Like I loved Red Dead for that. There's something about all the trappings of like out in the deserts with the cacti and the mesas and going around on horses and like the clothing of it, and I don't fully know why. And maybe that was a thing of, I feel like a lot of the things I was interested in when I was younger, my subconscious understood, because, like, I think as we've discussed before, like, I was a robot for a long time and didn't listen to my own feelings, but I still feel like dandelions growing through, like, the cracks in the asphalt, there was still some part of my brain still knew what I was and what I liked. And I think that's why we're doing this episode now, is to try to look backwards and go, because a lot of those interests are still here. It's like, what pulled me there? What part of me enjoyed that?
There's something, especially considering some of the properties that you have brought up, that I think is important to note, is that anything that we've brought up as points are by no means absolutes in and of ourselves, in that we have tendencies towards certain things, but that doesn't mean we will shut out other things. Like, you were talking a lot about Post-Apocalyptic. I don't see a lot of that stuff, but Mad Max Fury Road is one of the best movies I've ever seen.
Oh yeah, no, it's this whole thing is not of what you like and what you don't like. It's things that you have an affinity for, that that you will be more drawn to than other things. Like that was my buddy. Like we were trying to get him, he could not figure out if he had one of those, because he's like, he reads a lot of isekai, like painful. Like I didn't know there was this many amount of isekais.
Oh, there's a lot of isekai,
and there's a lot. And his number keeps getting bigger, and I don't know where they're coming from, because he's in the 400 range, and I'm so confused.
There's a.
And I'm like, aren't you? Sorry, I'll let you get to your point. Let me just finish my point. You can totally have your point. But it was like, aren't you drawn? I was asking, like, aren't you drawn to medieval things? That's what a lot of them are set in, just like magical. And he's just like, no, not really. It's mostly just the isekai part. I'm just like, interesting.
There's a site that you can essentially submit your own isekai, what are they called? Not short stories.
Fanfic?
No.
Light novels?
Light novel, yes.
Yeah.
There's a site where you can go do your own light novels, and isekais essentially are, like, the biggest tag where, like, they're getting, like, 10, 20 freaking a day, because it's like, it's an easy start, because
it's truest escapism, because it's not even like you're just reading another story about somebody else. It's like the protagonist is you. It is somebody from your world going elsewhere. And you'd think that'd be something I like, but I don't like isekais, because I think my brain goes, this is too easy of a fantasy escape, and I don't want it.
See, and like that's one of those things where I know I was talking to you, where, you know, we were talking about like, what are we pulled to, but I know one thing that you are just repulsed by is anything that's popular, or not popular, but oversaturated.
That is the hipstar brain I've referred to, of just if I didn't make my own personal connection with this before it blows up, I can really easily flop to the opposite side and start being
It's
like really petty about it. I think we were literally talking about this yesterday. We were talking about Last of Us 2. Is like, I didn't like The Last of Us 1, the little bit that I played. So then when I heard bad things about The Last of Us 2, I was like, which is like a really petty thing to do, but
now it's interesting, because I feel like I'm essentially the antithesis of that, where like, one, my time is worthless, so it's like...
See, that's where we're different, because my time is... I highly value my time and will not give time to things I don't care about.
Well, I'm finishing my point. I feel like essentially, like, just given my current situation in life right now, like, I have infinite amounts of time.
Time at a premium, we'll say.
Yeah,
Let's not say infinite. Let's not go crazy.
So, like, for me, it's like, I love stories. Like, stories are essentially my life. I even thought about becoming, like, an author at one point in my life. So it's like, I like just to consume everything inside of me. So it's like, if I hear even a murmuring that something could be good, and I'm just like, if it's available to me, I'll give it a try. And I have yet to really find many things that I dislike now. Like, I like finding the merit in things, and I feel like I have so much negativity in my life that I'm just like, I don't have time nor energy to like hate on something anymore. I'm just be like,
I wish we got to this idea sooner, of just the crossroads of, I don't value my time. One party, I don't value my time, and the other party, I value my time, maybe even too much. This is so interesting in my brain.
Like, it's so interesting. Like, I think I've been playing a lot of Hollow Knight, and it's like, I find this world so freaking interesting. The gameplay's so phenomenal.
Yeah.
And it's like, there's a point where, like, the game is so hard, and, like, the best ending is freaking locked behind, like, one of the freaking hardest achievements ever. I'd say it's harder than Dark Souls, which is crazy. But it's like, I just keep throwing myself at it because I just love it so much.
That's.
And I get to hear that in the next.
But then it's
I don't do that at all. Like,
but then,
I will take certain challenges, but if there's a certain point where things start feeling like BS, I go, I have an infinite. I always go, I have an infinite number of other things I could be doing that I could enjoy more than this, that I would get more out of it. So I will go do those things.
Like, I know we were playing Evil Within 2.
Yes.
Like,
yes.
I loved that game, because it's like, it's one of those things where if you sit down and you have the patience to kind of like to learn the mechanics and like essentially absorb yourself into this world, like, the game is amazing. But like with you, it's like we played it for like, and it feels not even an hour.
It feels bad to the touch. It looks like it is constantly screwing you over in ways that didn't seem mechanically fair, and I bounced off of it super hard because it seemed like it was ill made. The challenge did not feel like it was coming from the game on purpose. It just felt janky and not fun. And I remember when we had that conversation, because that was where I broached I have an infinite number of other things I could be doing that I'd get more out of than this. And I was thinking on that more another day, because I was like, that makes me sound like such a petulant child that has zero patience. And I feel like in those moments it can feel like that. I don't know, but it's just obviously quarantine has kind of put a stop to that, but I have, back in the before times when I had things going on, I was up to so many different things. I considered my time very valuable, because I'd hit points where I go, my week is too overscheduled. I can't fit another thing in that I want to do.
Well, then is that more of a problem of you overscheduling yourself?
Well, no, but this is me setting up why I value my time. There are always more things I want to be doing. So when it comes to the media I'm consuming and the games I'm playing and the stuff I'm watching and reading, I don't have time to quote-unquote waste on things that aren't drawing me in, that do not draw my attention.
That's very fair.
And that's the thing. If something pulls me in, it can be slow, it can be methodical. It just needs to have some hook. The example that I came up to, which you guys haven't watched yet, which we need to watch at some point. Like The Lighthouse is such a slow, methodical burn.
Oh yeah, we were gonna watch that in October. We never did.
It's doing things that it gets the hook in. Once the hook's in, once I have the thing that I am sold on, I will follow along to the ends of the... Well, not the ends of the earth, but I will keep going along because I'm promised something. But if I'm given nothing, if there's nothing interesting going on, there's no interesting, like, art design or characters, and everything's very paint by numbers or uninteresting to me, even if cool stuff pops off later, like, if I'm not given enough investment capital, so to speak... I don't stick around because there's something else that has more of a hook into me that I'll go watch now.
It's tough with certain properties and certain things because you'll hear that like you have to stick with it, and it can get tough. But sometimes that does pay off. Like I wasn't really into Steven Universe at first, like until about 20 to 25 episodes in when Lapis showed up, and then I was like,
so crazy to me. Which
okay,
we've had this
I
conversation
really love
like
this.
a billion times.
Yeah. Another one that's interesting, and I've been wanting to go back and rewatch this, but I also need to book an entire evening off in my calendar, is Interstellar. I remember I was watching Interstellar. I was so bored for like 2 hours, and then the way the movie ended was like, oh my god, and I was like tearing up. But that movie is, again, it's so, you don't know where it's going and you have to trust it. And it's hard to do that. And honest to goodness, I watched that with a boy that I was very interested in. And so that made it so I stuck through it. But it's one of those... If it weren't for that situation, I probably would have bounced, and I know that. But if I had bounced, I would have missed out on something, and that's kind of hard because it's like you don't know what is going to be worth it in the end and what's not. Even when people tell you it is worth it,
it doesn't mean it's going to be worth it to you.
Exactly.
But also there are times when people say something isn't good that you can get a lot of value out of.
And I've talked about this before, where like I love a story called Fallout Equestria Project Horizons, but like I know back when my brother was a brony, it was like, like we kind of shared fanfics that we liked, and I know he tried reading the original story, and like he couldn't get through like the first 2 chapters, when it's like, here's a story that like is so close and dear to my heart that is like it's essentially shaped me, but then it's like someone just goes, nah.
Nope. I was just talking to somebody recently that super reminds me, and I think we've even talked about the podcast before, where Jer and myself and another friend went to go see Mad Max after Jer and I, or Forward and I, had seen it. We were there for that one, right? The reviewing with another friend who was not there that initial night, and when we got out after we had overhyped it, and he was kind of meh on it, and we almost beat him up.
Yeah, well, because we talked before about the danger of overhyping.
Yes. Yes, but that's where all of this is a mess, and that's why it's hard to. That's why I rely on things that draw my interest, and I try to find those in things that aren't always in my wheelhouse. But as long as I have my hook, I will follow.
See, that was one of those interesting things, is because I know you guys really talk about Mad Max, and it was like, I'm not saying it's bad, but it was like I didn't get the same, like, oh my gosh, this is like the best thing ever. But it's like, I'm not like it.
I know,
it's
interesting
it's fine. How
every time I think about it, my brain fills with endorphins.
You know what the thing was about it for me was like, I didn't expect greatness, and it's like it just blew me away because I just walked in thinking I'm here to see a movie with friends, and then like just where it went, I was like, when I walked out of the theater, it was just like, whoa.
Were you there when we watched Road Warrior?
Yes.
Okay. That was because like that was my first taste of Mad Max proper, and just I took to it like, and it's weird. Like I'm not a car person. My car is the things that my car needs to do is get me from point A to point B and play my podcasts. That's really all it needs to do for me. Like I'm not interested with Porsche, all that. Don't care. Could care less. Just want good gas mileage. Just get me where I'm going, and hopefully an environmentally friendly way. There's just something about the Mad Max cars that just like primally just go like, freaking that's cool. Like Mad Max's car where you get the V8, like anytime a V8 like an engine is popping out of the hood, I'm just like, yes. Like there's a reason why I called my last car, also because I got the Furiosa arm sticker on it, like I called it the war rig in my brain. Like just all of that in the car chase, like there's just something about that. Again, we get back to our initial thing of like there was just something about the visuals of all of it, of Mad Max visuals in anything will always just draw my interest instantaneously, and I don't know why, but I love it.
So like here is an interesting question. Is I've noticed that one of the things that most pulls me into things is a like interesting original story ideas, and like mostly story, but like I know like you're saying that like with Mad Max, like it's like a lot of like the art direction,
the visual. Well, the thing about it is Mad Max Fury Road. I'm sorry if I stole your.
No, go for it. You're probably going to say what I'm going to say.
Mad Max Fury Road does probably the best job of any film I've seen at telling a story through its visuals,
through its props, even
just like there's so much visual. Like, is the first half of that movie has very little dialogue in it. But it doesn't need it. It's setting up the world and telling you this big story about kind of what happened to the world and telling you everything you need to know about the world you are in and the characters around it without having to have... It's kind of like the opposite of Tarantino, where Tarantino loves dialogue. And don't get me wrong, I freaking love Tarantino films. Kill Bill is like my favorite movie. But there's different ways to tell a story. And I think that's a lot of it, where some people didn't really get it. Some people that didn't get into Fury Road at first were a lot of people that they would have preferred more of like a dialogue driven, or like, you know, the story being told to you through more traditional means as opposed to just visually.
See, I guess with me, like, I think I need an equal balance. Because if it's too much one way or the other, I tend to kind of drop a little bit. But like I feel like if it had maybe a little bit more dialogue, or like a little bit more like them like saying, oh, this, you know, like essentially giving little hints as this is what's happening with this world, I think I would have been a lot more on board with it. But like I'm just really bad at like metaphors and symbols.
I think we have had these conversations, and I'm sad we're getting this. I'm going to go over an hour because I want to freaking get into this. Is that I feel like more than the three of us, or the most of the three of us, strong visual design will pull me through on things more than you two. Especially like if I'm given a strong, if I'm given a strong enough initial hook, let it be visual or otherwise, I will stick around on things and I won't ask too many questions. I don't remember what show it was in particular, but I know I got into a little bit of a conversation, argument with you about, you were like, I need answers to like the answers is the most important thing to me on this one, and I didn't have that at all.
I know there's Katra.
It might have been She-Ra.
It was She-Ra at first, but then
we went into it in other things.
I got what I wanted out of that.
Yeah, but it was that thing in the beginning parts where it was just like, I don't what I'm bought in for, like I can get more bought in on things up front. And I feel like for you, and maybe Rose as well, but I know it was more for you, of like, you take a loan out and you go, I hope the show pays me back, because it better pay me back. Well, no, we were watching that we were nervous something was going to blip the ending. What was that? It was this year.
I know there was Beastars.
You know what I'm talking about?
It wasn't Beastars, though. That was a whole different conversation.
Was it Beastars?
No. Oh, no, wait. Yeah, no, it was. We took the loan out and we thought it wasn't cashing in. Remember when we stopped watching it?
We were because it was the idea in the beginning part. We were worried. Yes. It was really good, but we had this feeling like it wasn't going to.
It was writing checks that couldn't cash.
I think you had that paranoia.
That was me.
I didn't, because I was super in on the aesthetic and everything going on. So, and I think it's like the crazy things that we don't think about on top of everything else that makes us like or dislike things, of just the way that you take in your information and the importance you put on each piece of it. Like again, I go back to the conversation that spawned this with my friends from Weeb Club, of like the one we were talking about, like video game stuff. And he's like, I don't usually pay attention too much to the visuals or like the music, because I was talking about Katana Zero, and also similarly like Hotline Miami. Like Hotline Miami lives and dies by its soundtrack, and its visuals, and the way that it makes you feel via those. Is the story kind of jumbled? Yes. Is it cool? Yeah, but it's not its strongest point. And I feel like that makes it so crazy different that not even just on the merits, but of just like my instruments for taking in things of my enjoyment are just vastly different than somebody else's, and I have no idea what theirs are or a sense of that.
Oh my god.
And how does anybody figure out anything they like and in a way that they can communicate it to somebody else if our means of taking on what that information is so crazy different?
Nothing pulls me in more than a good soundtrack.
You know what, this last bit, and I feel like, again, of course, looking at time, like, bringing up this question, I feel like I'm bringing up a big question.
Yeah, go for it. I said we'd go over it.
What you talked about, Rose, on kind of wanting that balance, so to speak, could you make the argument that trying to shake up the balance and tell something in a different way is the true artistry of a piece? And then you're getting into that kind of argument over what is art and what is entertainment.
What is the structure? What does it mean to justify that structure?
And I don't really have direct answers on this. It's more kind of like a thought piece to put out there.
I mean, I want to say this is a quote, but I don't remember. But I feel like a good filmmaker knows basically the rules of good filmmaking or good storytelling.
But you can break them.
But then a great storyteller or good movie maker is someone that knows how to break those rules in an effective way.
Yeah, I think a follow-up addendum of that, of just like, you can't break the rules until you've worked, but like until you know the rules, you can't break them.
You've been
essentially.
talking to Thoth, haven't you, honey?
I want to go say that is a Thoth quote, or it came from Thoth.
Paraphrasing it from something else. Yeah.
Well, it's a thing of like, that's an interesting thing because Thoth went to school for film, and he can look at a film. And our good friend Thoth Penswell from Rift Ponies, if anybody listening doesn't know already,
good dude.
You know, great dude, wonderful. He went to school. He has a degree in film. He literally went to school and studied different ways of making, like, film art and artistry and ways of making metaphor with different types of camera shots and all this stuff that we probably aren't going to look for. So sometimes he'll be talking about how great a film is.
And then Uncut Gems happens and we're so pissed at him.
Like, I wasn't pissed at him, I just didn't understand. And I think the thing is like, I understand that through his viewpoint with the knowledge he's developed over time and the viewpoint he's had, he's able to look at it in that certain way. Where me, as just a casual individual going into it, it's not, like, I got about halfway through and I'm like, I'm tired of these characters and I don't want to watch them anymore.
Well, one thing I find kind of interesting as kind of an example of what I was talking about is Soulsborne games are really interesting because it's like, it does two things. One, it tells its story in such a strange avant-garde manner where like you can play the entire game and still have no freaking clue what those games were about.
Yep.
But it's like, if you actually, and Hollow Knight actually does this too.
It does. It's very Soulsy in that regard.
Where like you like, I still haven't quite grasped the story of Hollow Knight.
Cool bugs, yo.
Cool bugs.
Bug
But
balls.
so it's like,
Cute bugs, yo.
But in all seriousness, like, I think maybe it's just because like I've been gaming for so long and like
You're the video game girl.
I am the video game girl. Where it's like it's interesting playing games like Halo or Gears from the very first game and then comparing it to the all the way up to 3 and onward, and it's like,
no, save this for the gaming
but
episode.
that's for the gaming era. My point is,
dive in and rip you up.
Hard games are for the very niche. Like, it's a very niche genre these days. So it's like,
okay.
That's fair. It's kind of so.
Yes.
So it does those two things, but despite all of that, they're still extremely popular. So it's like, they're done well. They break the rules well.
I'm going to try to wrap us up with our sort of my ending statement for whoever is listening to ruminate on, which we kind of started with what is it about the things that you gravitate towards? Like, where do those come from? What does that say about you? And I feel like my ending thought to ruminate on is understand more even just what you understand that everybody has a random, almost random set, seemingly to you, of things they ruminate towards, and also not even just that everybody's different and takes things on differently, but try to like meditate on the just sheer number and variety of different ways that we can consume a piece, and that how we can approach it and look at it and think and feel about it from one person to the next. Not even just that we liked or we didn't, we have certain things we like or we don't, but literally of just of importances we place on certain things and not others and all of that. So think on that a little bit. Your brain's going to explode. Mine's exploding right now, which is why I'm trying to make this a succinct ending, which is really not doing very well because it's a big idea that we're kind of processing as we're talking about it. But I would like to thank my wonderful co-host, Forward Progress, and Nova Rose for coming along this weird, extra double experimental, let's delve into our own psyches and wander off even further off the path than usual episodes of Kermit the Grog's Pop Culture Talk Zone. Yay!
Insert Kermit arms here.